Being a Buddhist and earning livelihood doesn't mean not earning money in a way, or not having money, or not using money.
So now we're entering more of the nitty gritty. I think with each one we're getting more into the nitty gritty of living our daily lives. In this next one, we're moving more into our interaction with the world around us, with the society around us, with the government, with the economics. So as I've said, in the Buddha's vision, where everything is interconnected and we cannot help but be affected by the society around us. And, a basic reality, people following the Buddhist path have to come to terms with is that society in general, certainly the society we live in, has values quite antithetical to what the Buddha taught and what we're trying to practice. So society with quite consumerist values that are very focused on the pursuit of luxury and comfort, exploitation of people and the environment to meet those purposes. And we're also in a society with a strong work ethic that, with this emphasis on long hours and high performance. And in the Buddha's lifetime, he addressed many of these socio-economic, political issues of his time. He had a very practical approach. But in terms of how we as individuals interact with society and this teaching of the Eight Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the Buddha focused particularly on our livelihood, on how we earn our living. So there's this whole sense of, interconnectedness. So there's the effect of the society on us, but the Buddha was asking us to reflect on what action we take in terms of how we earn our living, how we get by in living in society. Because mainly, I'm sure, because we spend a lot of our days in work, a lot of our lives working, and it takes up a lot of our energy. And and you could see this as an extension of perfect action that we looked at last week. So, as I said, the Buddha said we should be quite mindful in how we use our energy to earn money. So just carry on the thread of what is skillful and unskillful in terms of our ethical behavior. He delineated a number of areas of types of work we can do. So there's one area that's clearly not ethical or skillful, such as, the criteria is whether it would be harmful to us physically or others physically, and harmful to others physically or mentally, both of them. And so there are jobs that are clearly not skillful, such as working in an abattoir, where you're killing animals, not only very harmful to the animals and cruel to the animals, but having quite an effect on the mind of the people working there. Obviously, the manufacturing of arms. And there's a whole range of things. In the Buddhist time, it was making poisons. So people would make a living by selling poisons so you could harm your enemies. But I'm sure it doesn't take much imagination to come up with things that are obviously harmful. But then there's this area that's not so obviously unskillful, but could have unethical effects, like inducing craving, such as advertising, certain ways of using the media, So that takes a bit more reflection on, how we're engaging our energies to earn a living. And the third area is not unethical and benefiting society, but such as meeting needs of society. So you could take a bakery, for example, making bread, or stocking a supermarket. They're definitely something society needs, but I guess as Buddhists, if we're in that kind of employment that's a benefit to others, we could look at how to make it even more skillful and beneficial by how we interact with our work colleagues, how we might practice mindfulness. Because there's yet another area, which is, I guess, would be called a true vocation. So some work where all our energies are behind what we're doing, and that is of benefit to others. So, a number of questions we could ask ourselves, again, in employment, and how we use our energies to earn money. So as I said, we could ask, does this work benefit others? But we could also ask, is it conducive to my growth and development, in terms of realizing my potential? Because in Buddhism we're quite interested. This whole area of the Eightfold Path is to help us become more whole and fully realize our potential for enlightenment. So, given that we spend so much time and energy at work, this is another question we can ask. Is there any way we can bring in more conditions to support ourselves developing personally? So, we may not have the most, this deep vocation for our job, but it may not be harmful. It could benefit others. Maybe it might support us making enough money so we have more free time to pursue things that help us personally develop. There's a whole range of things I guess Vriyanaga and I will explore. But I'll just say a few things about my own personal experience. I've been a Buddhist now for well over 20 years. I guess 25 years now. And I've done a number of livelihoods. I was a lawyer when I started, when I first became a Buddhist. I was a lawyer in the States and over here, and it definitely was work that I felt benefited others. And I was interested in advocacy for people who didn't have equal access to law. And I represented a whole range of people, including children. And for quite some time, I felt like I was growing and developing in that work. But there was a certain point where I kept coming up against, I guess, my own psychology, and I didn't really have this natural attunement to the law. I was using a lot more energy than somebody who would have a natural legal mind to do the work, and it was leaving me very little energy for anything else. And there was a certain point where I just felt I wasn't growing and developing, and in a certain sense wasn't benefiting me. I don't know how much of benefit I was to others in a certain way, I guess in a practical way probably. And I made a decision eventually to leave that profession and to work in a Buddhist business where I lived and worked with people who were practicing the Buddhist teachings. And it's not to say there's an objective, there's something wrong about being a lawyer, but last week we were talking about knowing our own psychology. For my own psychology, it just wasn't the best use of my energies. So, these are some areas I'd be interested in talking to Viri and Alga about, but this is just pulling out a few of these areas we might reflect on in this limb of the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so now I'm going to turn to my friend Viri Naga, and I was thinking about you and I was reflecting on livelihood and work we do, because I know you've had some interesting history with different ways you've earned a living.
Yeah, no, thanks, Amra Pushpa. Yeah, I thought it's an area that I always been really interested in, and particularly, I know that you've been a lawyer as well, so I was really fascinated to hear a little bit more around your kind of reasons. I mean, I could really relate to that as well. I've been a scientist, and really I went into that because I wanted to contribute. I wanted to kind of, it was the most meaningful profession that I could kind of find in a way, or I was good at. I had a kind of ability to do. But yeah, just like you as well, I sort of found the limits of that in a way. And I really liked how you talked about the kind of internal aspects and the external aspects, the helping others around you and also working on yourself. I definitely found I reached that limit as well, and I wanted to seek a context where I could feel like I could not only get the benefit of helping people, maybe a bit more directly than science even, but also could work on myself a bit more. And so, as you know, I work for Brixton Buddhist community part-time, and I've also worked for another fundraising, Triratna Buddhist fundraising organisation as well.
Yeah, and I think people might find it surprising that Buddhism really exhorts us giving from a replenished place, from a place of abundance, and that if we're depleted energy-wise, it affects our mental states and it will have an effect on others. And I just find that such a helpful touchstone. And I also found that in the profession I was in, it was very meaningful work. But I found that I was putting too much emphasis on the fact that it was meaningful work as my identity, the actual job. But and others around me too, that because we did beneficial work, it didn't matter other aspects of life. So I just found I was in an atmosphere of a lot of antagonism or gossip and really unhelpful speech that I just couldn't help being affected by. And I found it really demoralizing, and I didn't feel strong enough in myself to protect what was quite precious to me in that atmosphere.
And there's something interesting there, isn't it, around sort of our own temperaments in a way. Of course we need all these different people doing all these different occupations in a way, and a lot of them do serve, as you're saying, the farmers and the shopkeepers and the nurses, and all of those people really contribute in a way. But I think it's also about looking at ourselves in that context, isn't it? And some people just seem more well adapted to certain contexts than others in a way. And I think you're right. There's a lot of right livelihood for me feels like finding a context that has the right conditions for you to grow whilst still making a contribution.
And I guess that's a true vocation, which is different for different people, where it's beneficial inner and outer, and being a lawyer could be a true vocation for someone who has that natural mind, and I do know them, and it's a very good match. But, there are so many areas of vocation, and that is, it's wonderful when people can get that. Not all of us are lucky enough, so then we have to look at our other conditions.
I mean, I feel like my friend Amala Vadra would want me to make a mention of money and how, we're earning a livelihood, or being a Buddhist and earning a livelihood doesn't mean not earning money in a way, or not having money, or not, using money for good in a way. I mean, his you won't mind me telling you, but his story is as an investment banker, and he moved on probably for similar reasons to us in a way, but he's now one of the main fundraisers for the Triratna Buddhist community. So he very unselfconsciously loves money. So he's put that kind of interest to sort of skillful use. So I think I just wanted to say that because I think there's an idea that somehow money is bad or shouldn't be mixed with religion or practice or something. It's nothing. Of course, it can be used for good or bad reasons or purposes, but there's not inherently anything wrong with earning money.
No, or asking for money. But we all have a different psychology, and I think often people drawn to a spiritual path can have that's too mundane or not spiritual. Money is energy. Money can be used for the good, and I think it's just coming back to what are our views, and is it a really helpful view? And there's so many grey areas in this. I talked about advertising because that's something our teacher used as an example of a livelihood that could incite craving in others. And yet my father worked in advertising, and he was a very good person, and he was basically doing it to help raise us as a family. And it's hard to to make it cut and dry. This is bad, that's good. But I think 9 times out of 10, if someone's working in abattoirs, it's going to have a harmful effect on that person's mind.
Certainly.
And not to mention the harm to the animals.
I mean, you're right. There's a lot of grey areas, isn't there? So in a certain way, I wouldn't want to be too prescriptive around what it wouldn't fit as right livelihood in a way. Yeah. I've got a broader question for you that I'm sort of interested in. That I would be keen to hear what you think about it. But you talked about broader society and governments and so on. And there's a lot of social action around at the moment, isn't there? We've had Black Lives Matter. We've got an unfolding situation in the United States at the moment with the election, and I know you're from New York yourself, and how much of that kind of, I know people want to change that. They recognise that the values that they are reflected in society don't match their values, and they can feel as though they want to change that, but it's easy to feel disempowered, isn't it? So I don't know if you've got any reflections on that.
Yes, thank you, because I meant to mention that there is engaged Buddhism that we obviously we as individual and society, I guess the most clout we have is on the economy. So, what we choose to buy, reflecting on where it's come from and what the effect will have. And, there are Buddhists engaged in all sorts of social action. And, obviously the Buddha himself commented on, he was persuaded quite a few people in his lifetime around the caste system, and that's continued on to this, this last century, where ex-untouchables converted to Buddhism, because so they found something quite radical. There was a radical change in their lives and benefit in their lives, and it's had a tremendous social effect, and that's through the conditions that the Buddha put in place through his teachings.
That's good, isn't it? I mean, I guess there's a sort of sense that we have a certain sphere of influence, don't we? And we should use whatever sphere of influence we've got, whether that's large or small, in a way, to try to encourage more skillful or spiritually conducive conditions around us.
And to exemplify another way of being, which we do by living in communities, it's a very different lifestyle to the mainstream, but practicing living in harmony and sharing, and our teacher Sankarachita had a vision for a new society, and the business I joined was part of that. And there's still Buddhist businesses around, but I joined a team where we practiced together, but we also we created something we felt was a positive something in the world. It was a business, but we sold health food. And a number of people, we just built up a lot of clientele saying they were quite drawn to coming into it because of the atmosphere we created. And a couple of people became Buddhists just through that contact for the shop. You know.
People can tell, can't they?
That's right. There was something different, they would say, when they walked into that atmosphere.
I mean, even when I was a scientist, I remember, it would be a group of scientists all working together in a way, and just my presence there, people would ask me things, and it would just open up conversations, that I could have about veganism or about Buddhist practice or ethics or whatever. It was sort of very, I'm just struck that actually maybe we have more agency than we think in a lot of circumstances.
That's right. Yes, you could bring it to any workplace. And, I did mention something about, the work ethic of, how much time is the social norm to spend working, and, the performance pressures on people. And, our teacher, would say, just look at the effect on your mental states, and in terms of, I guess stress levels, and, certainly that was one thing that, contributed to my moving away from the law at that point, because of my own psychology. It's not that it would affect other people that way, but it's something, that I guess that relates to energy and how we spend our energy, and how many hours doing a certain thing, and looking at how much we actually really need to live on. What are the essentials? I mean, when I first went down to part-time work, I had nightmares. I was going to be homeless on the street. I was going to be a bag lady. And then, I survived that, and then I left law altogether. And, I've got enough to live on. I've lowered, I don't have a car, I don't own a house, but I get by, and I'm very, it's just so much more happy and fulfilled than when I was doing that other kind of work. So, yeah.
I guess unless we're in a vocation, it's probably good to work as little as possible in a way.
That's right. Yes. But there are all sorts of reasons and motivations. I mean, I know someone who works full time, and it's not necessarily his vocation, but he really wants to help a centre in mainland Europe. So he works full time to help that centre grow, and that's his vocation. But the job itself isn't something he particularly enjoys. But it's about a means to something he feels very inspired by. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. If you feel you've benefited from this class or other classes, or even know of other people who might benefit from what we do here in Brixton Tree right now, we'd ask that you consider making a financial donation so we can continue offering these activities and develop more activities. Ordinarily, we'd be running classes for the public and asking for donations. Obviously, like most enterprises and most people, we're feeling the effects of the coronavirus, and we're aware that other people might be feeling financial constraint in their lives. But again, we just ask if you can, if you could help us. We are, we're looking to grow and develop this community to benefit others, and we hope you'll join us, not just financially, but in other ways as well. And we run this on a voluntary basis, with a few people doing necessary work that get support. So thank you very much if you have donated, and thank you in advance if you do.